grant each of them wisdom and understanding and discernment. Father, I pray that their conversation would be respectful, Lord, that you will continue to cause them to be unified, Father, as they serve the citizens of Vienna. So much work has been done by many. And Lord, would you just bless and lead and guide as the work continues for this project. You are sovereign, you are all powerful, and you are all knowing. So we ask your blessings, Lord, in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Councilwoman Anderson.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'd like to call to order the special session of the Vienna City Council for December the 1st, 2022. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we move on to new business. We have a resolution finalizing the scope and revisions to the Jackson Pool design in order to obtain the revised costs and renderings. I will turn the meeting over to Recorder Elam to take us through this.
Yes, thank you. So at our last meeting, we went through some changes. We did some votes on some of the elements of what we wanted to do. I spoke with Omni and Martin Aquatic last week, and there was some clarification needed. They heard what we were saying, but they wanted to make sure we understood what we were asking for. Specifically, one of those things was those play structures. We had voted to just go ahead and take those completely out. Kind of the thought was if we want to add them back in later, we can. And that was one of those pieces that's not quite true. So we need to make sure that we want to take them either completely out or leave them in some way. It's kind of a now or never type situation because the foundation for them is unique to each structure. The way they attach and bolt in and that kind of stuff is unique. So like for instance, if we wanted to do the agility course, however it's designed, that foundation and apparatus is going to be unique to that. And if we were like, well, we don't want to necessarily put it in yet, but we still want to go ahead and put the foundation in, well, we may as well just go ahead and put it in because it's not, the foundation's already going to be there, right? So it's not just one of those things where we can say, well, okay, we think we're ready for it now. Let's dig everything up and put a new foundation and that kind of thing. So they wanted us to revisit that to make sure that we're saying, take it out, to fully understand what that means. So that was one of those pieces. They had an update as far as the platform diving board. What they have found is that regulation-wise and stuff, they're usually higher in height than what the depth of our pool will allow, and they're very expensive. And so we need to talk about taking out the platform diving board, adding in maybe I'm suggesting to do 2 springboards that are the same size and height. They wanted to talk about the water slide options and the splash pad elements. So because those were out of because the splash pad was out of the original scope, to revisit that and to design that into what they've already done was going to cost additional money. And they heard that we wanted those options, but they wanted to make sure we understood that was going to come with a cost, and do we want to do that or not? And that went for the water slide option as well. They had asked me, if I was to rate our water slide on a low, medium, or high side, how would I rank that? I said I would say ours is kind of on the high side, like the best side. And so anything that we would want to do below that would be less money than what we have now. But again, that would be something that would cost additional money, and we needed to make sure that we were clear on that. Let's see here. One of the things we had mentioned, but it wasn't something we took a vote on last week, was heating the pools. So I've got that as one of our bullet points for tonight as well. and anything else that anybody has questions about or feels like we need to address this evening, because the next step after this, once we have given them direction on these things and they're able to move forward on it, then it will take them, because of time, because we're not the only thing they've got on their plate right now, because it'll take them about 2 weeks to get a revised cost and a revised rendering to us. So that puts us 2 weeks from now. And then by the time we get together and vote to accept whatever they've given us, we're pushing our timetable here, and not at all wanting to be hasty, but wanting to be thorough and make sure that we're ready to proceed. I don't want to see us get any further behind than what we were when we initially started all this. So I'm gonna kind of open up the floor here for a second and just ask, was there anything in addition to the items that we already have on here that you feel needs to be addressed? Any of the, so they didn't have a cost for a ramp on there, and then we decided not to do the ramp, so we have just the ADA lift in there, so that won't change. Was there anything else on any of their opinion of probable cost that anybody feels that we need to address at this time? If not, then I would like to go ahead and talk about each of these in order. And each of you in council, and if anybody else had looked at these online, I provided just an explanation from my conversation with them. And I'll go ahead and share that, and then my suggestion, and then I would like to take that to a vote. Is that proper and good, Russ, to do each of those individual pieces that way?
I think that's probably the easiest way.
Okay, all right. All right, keep an eye on me. Okay. Okay, so in regards to the play structures, that would be the lily walk, agility course, basketball hoops, rope swing, and the climbing wall. I said that the anchoring goes into the deck, so it is now or never. They are structurally embedded. It is possible to include the foundation and installation now, then purchase them later, but we run the risk of the foundation being outdated if the apparatus is updated or changed. That was another piece of it. He said, these companies, they like to keep everything fresh and new. And so, we might say, oh, let's go ahead and put in the foundation for this, but we're not going to buy the piece yet. And then 2 years from now, we're ready to buy the piece and the whole thing's changed. So that's why we would need to make that decision all at once. My suggestion is to take all of it out except for one basketball hoop. I think one basketball hoop is probably nice to add to that deeper end of the pool. We can get a special ball, a few special balls that are used just for that. The pieces are fun, but could become ho-hum after a few years of use. Instead, I think we need to look at providing noodles, floats, kickboards, or other things that pool goers will enjoy. And those are all things that we will need to discuss with management and lifeguards and things like that to make sure that anything that we do introduce to the pool is, safe and can be managed. But I'm suggesting that we take out all of that and not intend on putting it in except for one basketball hoop. So is there any discussion on that particular item?
I think that sounds reasonable to me.
You go ahead, Chris. You can go first.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, suggestion-wise, I think that's fine if we take all of those things out. My only thought was, would it make sense to go ahead and just do 2 basketball hoops? Because if there's more than one group of kids that want to play with that, providing 2 of those just might ease the, groups of children wanting to play with it. Especially if that's the only thing we're going to do, I think 2 of them would make sense to me, but.
Okay. Well, so my issue about the basketball hoop is kind of related to the water slide. Because, and I know we're going to talk about the water slide, but when we have a water slide that is actually, you know, the self-contained unit with the filtration and everything, that's what's caused all this expense, right? If you look at, for example, the water slide at Parkersburg, it's also a 20-foot, it's about 20 feet, you know, you go up the steps, it's a little platform. It dumps directly into the pool, into the deep end. That water slide, when it was completed, and this was a couple years ago, I think they opened it in 2019, was less than $200,000. So for me, I'd like to stick a pin in the idea of deciding right now about the basketball hoops, because if you could have a water slide dump into the deep end, but you can't if there is basketball hoops right there. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when you get the cart before the horse, because to me, I mean, I've said this a million times, I'm still uncomfortable. I'm completely uncomfortable on a $2 million water slide. And I think the possibility of having a water slide that maybe is going to be a tenth of that cost, we need to think about that. So
just as a matter of explanation, mm-hmm. I don't think having a slide that dumps into the swimming pool is an option. And the reason for that is because of the height. If you have a swimming pool that dumps into the water, and you're better at this than I am, if it's a 4-foot pool, you have to be 4 foot 6 inches, 8 inches to use that slide. If you do the catch trays, mm-hmm. whatever the word is for that, mm-hmm. then it's not that stringent because the water is only a foot deep. And if you have that pool, that slide dump into the pool, you're going to severely restrict the number of people that can use that slide.
Well, in the $2 million water slide, there's also a height restriction on that as well. So
yeah, but this is the exit thing where it actually dumps out. The design on that has those two
runouts.
Thank you. The two runouts, which allows you to do a lot more ages, sizes, what have you. If it dumps into that swimming pool, then, you know, obviously when you come down, you have to be tall enough that your head sticks out of the water.
Okay, yeah, and again, the height restriction for the one that we have in the design right now is 42 inches, and that's really not very tall. That's a 4-year-old. So if we were dumping it directly into the pool, we're going to miss 4, 5, 6, probably 7 and 8s can't use the slide. So that's a big group of kids that we have at the pool that would not be able to use it because of the height.
Okay.
Restriction.
I mean, you know, once again, I'm just looking for alternatives because you want a slide, which, you know, I go back to the slide. I don't know how we got to this slide to begin with because, you know, we started out 3 years ago. I know there's a conversation in here about splash pad and, you know, we had the Pickering rendering and so on and so forth. Then the master plan said splash pad. And so now we're at slide. So I'm just trying to look at something that is an alternative to a $2 million slide. Mm-hmm.
Here's my comment on that. I went back and I looked at the park master plan and looked at the survey they did, and by a substantial margin, the pool was the most significant interest in the citizens of Vienna. We're talking about, you know, a commitment that, regardless of the timeline, which I think is a critical piece of this, as far as what benefit or cost is there to us from proceeding on a certain schedule. That's one thing. Now, with respect to what our community wants, and go big or go home, you know, the slide we talked about the 22-foot, we talked about scaling it down to lower. The question is, just like it goes all the way back to, you know, the bus tours we do for seniors, all right? Is this feature going to create a demand for our citizens? And these water slides are kind of, to me, are the centerpiece of, you know, and the two slides, and it's a steep ticket, I agree with you. But when you're talking about really being able to make a difference, looking about something that's 50 years, or 30 years, or whatever, the access is a great point, and I actually didn't realize that through these comments here, the distinction between a $200,000 slide. But, you know, so I think the balance for us is the demand for this, there's limited return on pool available for that, limited time frame available for that. You know, if I was a kid, you know, my kids, we all like hikes. I had hikes. high dives. To me, we put a high dive in too. But the slides provide the safety and yet give that enduring thrill. It's not going to wear out for kids. So as far as the features of what's been designed and the work and lesson the committee have done, I kind of like it. And I know it's, and the other thing, I'm going to finish up with this. With all the contingencies, this was $6 million, and also with all the acceleration and this and that, I believe that if we take a measured response and approach this and what we actually want, and then also are willing to say what is the most efficient time schedule that we need to approach, then maybe we can balance it out and get the best of both. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? One other, I was going to comment on something else with as far as the pool, because right now our slide dumps out into the pool, and that is just that's a restricted area. It's not, it kind of takes away from the whole free play area because that has to be roped off specifically for the slide. So in having the slide as a separate designated space, then the pool itself is more available to anything else. Okay, so proper way to take this to the vote. So I would say, okay, so let's talk about, I'm okay with doing, say, the two slides, the two basketball hoops. I could go either way with that because they would be removable. We could unbolt them, and if we wanted to take them both off for a swim event or something like that, we could. Or
Yeah, and I guess my thought too on the basketball hoops, they were like $3,700.
Yeah.
So I mean, to do two of those in the grand scheme of things, if we really are considering paying $6.5 million for a pool,
yeah,
what's another $3,500?
Yeah, total they're $7,500. So no, we have to provide our own balls for that. So I'm okay with that. If we want to go ahead and say two basketball hoops, we could do that, and then have all the other pieces as something that we are not going to include in the design. So that is how we will take that vote. That would be, yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to do this one. I want Mrs. Zealand to go through all of her concerns and voice them, and then we vote on this total package. Okay?
Well, it's your meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
I
just trying to figure out.
I don't see where there's going to be that much changes made.
I don't know. Either way, as long as council is clear on what it is that they're voting for, public has been put on notice to the agenda. As long as council is clear on what they're voting for at the time they vote, the process of how we get those things in front of council is not that important.
And
as long as we can keep.
I think that when she gets finished, that she will summarize and she will clean this thing up, and then it will be easy to say that, all those items have been eliminated, that there are two basketball hoops in there, and right on down the list. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't, if as far as the resolution goes, if we would vote on them individually, wouldn't that kind of constitute maybe needing a resolution for each one of those?
Well,
I mean,
what I was thinking when this was presented to prepare something to present to council was I think in terms of the contractor, you have a punch list. When we go through the punch list, you have an idea of what the pool already looks like with the proposals. And I was thinking of this in terms of this is a punch list of the changes that the council as a body wants to make to the pool. That's why I've written it up so that it could be done individually. But if you want to go through and discuss all of the items, that's fine. I mean, it's again, I don't know that you need a separate resolution to do it. That's what
It's clearly defined in the
I
resolution.
think you just need.
You're going to have to amend it anyway because the first item's wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
But at any rate, if we just make your presentation, we'll summarize it in the end, and then we'll go. All right?
okay.
Okay. So then, get my notes back out here. This is,
One second.
yeah, go ahead.
Just on.
If we did it one at a time, then we got the one that was a big controversy of, you know, would it be simpler to resolve the controversy?
Well, based on the way Russ wrote the resolution, Tom, there are 6 items that are in here. And so as we get down to the end of this, if there's a particular item in this resolution that needs to be changed, that will be the time to do it. You'll have to amend it and say, okay, I would like to amend item number 4 to do whatever it is that you want. But it's very, very clearly laid out here, all of these particular things. So the discussion should take care of that, and then someone will have to make the motion to amend it and then see if it passes. Okay? All right.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next one. Add or remove the platform diving board. Again, I'll read from my notes here. My notes from my conversation with them said that all their research has determined that they are very expensive and are recommended to be higher than our deep in-depth will allow. So my suggestion is dismiss the platform board option and provide 2 identical springboards. I do not believe that 1 diving board is sufficient. Again, 1 springboard costs $18,000, so it would be for a 1 meter, and I say we just get 2 of them. Maybe we can get 2 different colors or different color steps, or something that kind of distinguishes them, the left Twix from the right Twix, or something like that. But I would like to see us take the platform diving board option off, and instead of just having 1 springboard, having 2 identical springboards. Comments, questions?
I'll move.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, good.
Okay. I'm writing this down so I can say it all at the end.
So we'll do that at the end, Jim.
Say again.
We'll do your amendment at the end. We're going to amend the whole resolution, all right?
Okay. Next, add or remove water slide options. I will again read from my conversation with them. The reason they design it with 2 slides is so it is not a one-hit wonder. Options create more enjoyment. When asked if what they presented was on the low, medium, or high side, I advised that it was on the high side. The hydraulic requirements and costs associated with change based on the hydraulic requirements and costs associated will change based on what we choose. If we want costs and renderings for a medium and low option, there will be an additional fee. The height and complexity of the descent will be lower for both options. There is a direct correlation to the level of thrill also. My suggestion is removing most of the play structures increases the need for a dependable and timeless slide structure. I don't want to spend additional dollars for 2 options that we may not even choose. It would also extend the decision timeline, and we do not have time to spare. I am satisfied that the slide that is proposed will serve our community well. Are there any questions about how the timeline would be affected by this, or kind of acknowledging, if we say we still really want 2 slide options, that means we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting again. We're coming back for this, and we might still choose the one that we have. So I am not in favor of that. I believe that what we've been presented is a great option that will serve us well and that will be a real hit, and it serves a huge demographic, and so that's my 2 cents there. Questions, comments?
If you look at these slides and the kids that are using them, that age group makes up the majority of the attendees at the pool. I always thought. But, everyone uses them, but that was just kind of an observation and a thought that I had. So.
Come on, Roger, you'll get on one, I'll get on one.
I guess I do have a couple of questions and comments in regards to the slide. I think Jim kind of mentioned this earlier. You know, the rushing of the timeline. I don't know that we necessarily need to be concerned about that. And if we really want to do our due diligence here, I think it would be wise of us to look at two options for a slide. Now, I'm not saying that we have to get full-on renderings of both options, but I think even if they could just give us a second cost, I don't know that would. I'm not quite sure why that would require an additional fee from them to provide us an additional cost estimate on, say, all right, we have a 22-foot tall slide and it costs $400,000. So would an 18-foot slide cost $300,000?
I see what you're saying, and some of that for me, because we are because I feel like what we have is like on the high side.
Right.
I don't know, anything that they give us is going to be less.
Yeah, and
so
that's where I think we should be a little bit cost conscious on this. Like Kim was saying, it's not a small chunk of change for these slides. So for me, I think it would be responsible of us to ask to have at least one other option to see, you know, how much can we save if we do a slightly smaller option? Is it going to be a significant amount of money? And we don't, again, I don't know that we need all the renderings and full-blown drawings of those pools, but they could say, hey, yeah, an 18-foot tall pool is going to save you $500,000. And then, you know, I think from there we can kind of make a better decision rather than trying to rush this through to get things done at a certain time.
So I agree with Jim. You know, we haven't done any improvements in this pool in 50 years. All right. And so if you calculate the cost of this slide over the next 30 years or whatever the projected life of it is, that cost is very minimal. All right. And so I think that, you know, that will be the featured add to the pool. And so I personally would like to go with the design we have. And then, you know, it's just, I mean, we're not going to do this again for a long time.
No, I understand that, but you know, again, I just think we should be a little bit responsible with how much we're willing to commit to this. I know we talk about 30 years out, how much is it going to cost over 30 years? And that makes sense, but at the same time, you know, we even talked about way back when at the very beginning of this whole conversation that we don't want to have the Taj Mahal of pools, right? We want something that is of good quality and great for our community. And I think that's really important. But I think we also, as the city of Vienna, should be responsible with how much we're willing to spend on that. So, I mean, even if we say for right now, we're okay with this water slide, but just provide us a cost estimate for a slightly smaller pool to see if we could save some money in the long run.
Would that be progress of getting started?
It depends on availability, Tom. I'm sure that's a big concern. Okay.
It'd be about $17,000 a year.
Okay.
Plus borrowing costs, plus a lot of other, plus borrowing costs, plus a lot of other things. But, I want to go back to what you said about timeline and what Jim touched about on timeline. So if you look in the proposal, by their own estimation, the earliest that we can, if everything goes well, okay, which could happen, we're looking at mid-July. Okay. Then the pool has to be filled, and then that water comes out. I've been told it's like 58 degrees, and it takes a couple weeks for it to come up to a temperature that's comfortable for most people. And by the time all that happens, and also it's time to close the pool back down again. And how are you going to get, not only you have to have lifeguards, but a management company, because, wait a minute,
I know.
okay? So I'm thinking we've got this deadline that we're, and I appreciate the hard work of trying to get it done in 2023, but there are so many things that are outside of our control. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and I brought this up several meetings ago, I don't know, I'm sure Chris read the geotechnical report as well, but the optimum time to do that work is in summer and early fall. Otherwise, we may have the expense of trying to bring dirt in, so on and so forth. While I could really appreciate wanting to have a pool in 2023, I also want to be realistic about it, especially because what we were saying, it's going to cost us more money, to do it. We're fast pacing this, and it's going to cost us more money, and it still may not work out. But I have another comment I want to come back to, but you can go ahead.
Okay.
I know you want to tell me something about the timeline.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the timeline a little bit, and totally agree that it would make no sense to open the pool mid-July and close it mid-August. That would be ridiculous. If it opens mid-July, I don't want to see it closed till the end of September. Why would we close it? We should be able to enjoy it, and let's have a non-traditional season. And I know that we would have to, there are things we'd have to work out, like the lifeguards, and we'd have to figure that kind of stuff out. But there are a lot of people that would love to use the pool beyond August 15th. Mothers with small children would love to go to the pool still. Senior citizens would love to have more exercise classes. We could do swim lessons. We could do all kinds of stuff. Still have pool parties in the evenings. It's still in the 90s in September. So I say we have a non-traditional pool season, and maybe we'll pull it off, and everybody says, let's do it again. Hey, we'll keep it open, clear past school, when we have a regular full season. So I would like to see us conquer that.
Well, I would too, for permanently, actually, to extend past the middle of August. But then there's the reality of not having lifeguards and the pool company and all of the things that go into that.
And we would work all that out ahead of time. Like, that would all have to be worked out ahead of time. And
okay, because if you work that out ahead of time,
we make it happen.
That'll be a miracle, because it's not happened yet, and we're not the only.
We've never needed to do that before.
We're not the only community that faces this. It's all around our area. That's just a reality. But so for me, that schedule, I have a big problem with it. But I wanted to talk about the water slide for a second. If you look at this plan, okay, and you take, I had several people say to me, well, why can't you just put the pool back the way it was, In an actuality, if you look at this plan, to put the pool the way, to make the repairs to the pool itself, the main pool, to get a baby pool again, and great improvements with zero entry, increasing it to 18 inches. Renovating the bathhouse and the concession stand, okay, that has to be done. Building a brand new pump house has to be done. All the decking, all that work that has to be done, all the earthwork and everything like that. That price tag for that right there, before we talk about splash pads or, water slides, no matter if they're 18 foot, 22 feet, 100 feet, it doesn't matter. That price right there is $4.2 million. Okay? That's a lot. And so when I understand that everybody's like real excited about a $2 million water slide, and I'd like to be excited about it, but I'm not excited about the price, because for me, I feel like we have to have some fiscal responsibility. When I look at other needs with that through the city, and I know I hate to kind of compare things, but when you start to talk about the impact we would have with the kids, how many kids would be able to enjoy this, and the impact, to have this water slide, this $2 million, and I think, yeah, that's true. Then I think about, what, we could dredge Pond Run for less than $2 million and have an impact for the city of Vienna, for thousands of people, whether it's residents and businesses. So it's like, I cannot get over that price tag. It's not going to happen. But so I would be like where Chris is at in finding some alternatives, some less expensive slides. Wow factor is great. But when you have to put a dollar sign to it and actually pay the bill, that's a lot. And then the other part of it, and I've mentioned this before, the maintenance and operation of that slide, because I guarantee you're going to have at least one attendant who's going to, somebody's got to check the height of the kids, make sure they're not, going down 5 people at a time and doing reckless things that kids do. I did all those reckless things when I was a kid. So, how much it costs to maintain the system, the filtration, the chemicals, the overall maintenance on that slide over the years to come. And then those costs start adding up tremendously. So, it's a big consideration.
I'm going to respond to a couple things. First of all, and I want to, the word I want to use is caution. I want to caution us from, we may have different ways of being responsible, but I don't think anybody's being irresponsible. So I think when we talk about spending our money responsibly, I believe that everybody up here wants to spend our money responsibly. When we are talking about other needs of the city, we have tons of needs around our city, and we are not spending all of our money on the pool. So we are, is the pool going to cost a lot of money? Yeah, but unfortunately, there were councils before us that didn't take care of it, and they kicked the can down the road, and it is this council's opportunity to do something about it. And if they would have taken care of this years ago, we'd be looking at a $2 or $3 million pool, probably with more stuff, and we're not there. So we, I think, need to own the mistake of the past and make it right now. There are certain things that we can do that are that could lessen, the cost. There are going to be things that, especially once they have the go to start ordering things. And if we see, if they find out that something is, hey, this thing is 12 months out on being able to get this particular thing in, then we know that we don't need to pay something accelerated, and that changes our timeline and that kind of thing. And so there are things that are going to come along the way that are going to knock that price down more, and that we're not going to end up having to pay accelerated costs. There are choosing my words. I think we also need to make these decisions now, and it's not being hasty about it. If we were starting a pool conversation right now, we would be pushing a timeline regardless. So I don't think that we need to pump the brakes, but we're not. I think we have a really good pace right now. And if we are going to continue to do everything we possibly can to get the pool open next year and to have a decent season for our community. If things are out of our control, then we will have a great 2024 season, right? But that way there is no doubt it's there. But I think we can pull it off. But if we keep delaying decisions, that's hurting the timetable. And I am satisfied, and I have peace both from the left side of my brain and the right side of my brain. So I've looked at the numbers, and I've looked at the designs, and I've also checked my feelings and all of that. I am satisfied with being able to move forward on something like that.
Can I want to be careful. I feel like we have had a lot of the conversation revolve around some assumptions of what we could do or can do or want to make happen. And I completely appreciate that, like, desire to make things happen for our community. That's awesome. I just want to like make sure that we are really being realistic about things, and not trying to just make assumptions without having real tangible numbers and answers. And it just makes me nervous when we start talking about like personal desires on a pool project, because the pool isn't just like for me as a city council person, it's for the whole community. And with that comes the community is basically going to be paying for this pool. The community hasn't had a pool for a long time, so let's make sure we do it the right way. And so I already know that like a lot of the costs that Omni presented to us was accelerated fees and almost 25% more for just the pool liner itself. And I don't know that having a pool open next year is really the best thing for this community. I know that the community needs a pool. We're all on the same page, and we're moving forward with that. We have a design. We've hired Omni. They're working on the pool design as we speak. I think we're taking advantage of this opportunity to make a pool. But I don't know that we necessarily need to expend this, 15, 20, 25% excess in cost to speed things up, to have a pool open for 8 weeks or 10 weeks. Because there are a lot of complications with that. And especially once school starts and having employees and staff and maintaining it. And is that just going to expound the costs that we have to pay next year to have it open when it's not going to be fully utilized? It's okay if we take a step back and say, all right, we're going to keep moving on this project. The wheels are in motion, but let's just plan for 2024 and a plan for a great year for 2024. That way we don't have to feel so anxious and rushed to make these decisions immediately, and we can kind of get the answers that we need and look at the costs appropriately and plan accordingly to those costs. And that way, when we're talking about the water slide option right now, again, I still think it's beneficial for the city to look at least 2 options for the pool and for the slide, so we can say, hey, in order to make any real savings, the water slides are going to be kind of pathetic. And then we can say, okay, so that's fine, then we'll pay the $2.5 million for the really nice slides, because we realize that in order to really make any savings, it's not worth it. But to just like blindly plow forward and say, no, we have to do this so that we might have a pool potentially next year, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. I just can't get my head around that idea. And so I think we do need to just kind of slow down a little bit and make sure we have all of the options out there before jumping into this too quickly.
Chris, other than the pool liner, what other accelerated costs are you referring to? I don't know of any besides the pool liner.
Well, that's just the one that they had specifically
Okay,
listed.
so Mrs. Elam's going to address that here in just a few minutes. Okay?
Okay, and that's fine, but I'm saying,
I wanted to know if I was
okay.
missing something.
Yeah.
I didn't
know.
think I was, but
That was the only one they had specifically listed. But I'm an architect. I do this every single day. I know that there are hidden costs, and it might not specifically say, oh, you're paying 20% more for this to be expedited. But I guarantee you, if I have a client that comes to me and says, hey, I know you're really busy, but I need a pool design next week, I guarantee you I'm going to charge 30% more than someone that comes to me and says, hey, I need a pool in a year and a half. Right? Because that's going to put me under a lot of pressure and a lot of time crunch. And so it's going to cost more. And you put that on the architect, you put that on the contractor, you put that on the pool designers and the people that, actually build the pool. And all of that just adds up. And so that's where I think we need to just slow down a little bit and say the timeline thing to me is not as important as just doing this right and making sure that we spend the right amount of money on what we're getting.
So I disagree with you, and my reasoning for that is, if we move forward with this, there are several of these elements to this renovation that can be done in the wintertime. You can rebuild the pump house, you can rebuild the pool house, you can remove all the concrete, and then when the weather breaks, then we can have all the plumbing installed, and then we put a new deck on it. And I mean, I don't have the apprehension that you do. I've seen guys work in the wintertime. These guys will do a great job, and I don't believe the timeline is nearly as tight as what you think it is. Now, the availability of materials is where the thing comes in that you have no control over. But as far as, there's a lot of companies out there would love to have work in the wintertime because it's inside work. And so I don't share that same concern that you do.
Well, respectfully, we're doing an outdoor pool. All of the work is outside. And you know, I know that, I mean, we've talked about this timeline from the very beginning. I have expressed my concern about this because we from the beginning, we hired Omni because they promised us the pool by May. And I asked for a schedule, and I asked for a schedule, and I asked for a schedule. And we finally got one at the last council meeting, and they're saying mid-July at the best. And so I guess I'm getting a little bit frustrated that we keep talking about this timeline and being so confident about it when what we were told from the very beginning is already not true. So why are we continuing to try and push the timeline? Let's just talk about the costs and be responsible and take the time that we need to as council and as a city to make sure that, you know, what we're doing is good for the community. We all agree that we need a pool, but let's do that the right way and with the right money to be spent on it. It's just really hard for me to swallow a pill of paying 25% more for the pool liner and 15% more for the slides to be done early. And, you know, well, I don't see the benefit in that for the city of Vienna. I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm going to mention a couple things.
So would you please go
Yeah.
on and get with the pool liner and explain that to Chris so he'll understand?
Yeah, so a couple things. So I want to address, first of all, when you're talking about why we chose Omni, when we went through that RFQ process, there were 4 companies that we interviewed, and it was not the only thing. It wasn't like we, ask all of them, can you get it done by May? Yes, no, yes. And that's why we picked them. There were a lot of questions on our matrix. We all scored them the way we felt we needed to score them. And when the results were tallied, they were the number 1 choice by far. It was not close. So to say that that's why we picked them, that was one of the scoring things when we were talking about it. But that was not by any means like, oh, well, nobody else could do it by May, so we picked them. I just want to clarify that real quick.
Can I ask a question on that then, just so everyone knows? How many points did you award someone if they said that they could accomplish it by May? Because you had a specific item on the matrix that said, if you can accomplish this by May, we're giving you 15 points, right?
No, it was subjective. So each of us, like if you were judging,
Right, but I'm saying
a maximum of that many points.
yeah, so it was pretty heavily weighted, because if you have 100 points and 15 of those points are whether or not you can accomplish our timeline.
35. It wasn't 15, it was 35. It was over a third. It was the most heavily weighted. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
It was
I had the
35,
number
not
wrong.
15.
Yeah, so even more so, to my point, we were so concerned about this timeline that it was almost 30% of our score for the matrix. And I just disagree with that. I mean, I think we need to be realistic about the timeline. And, I still want to get through these items, but I think we need to be realistic about the timeline and spending the right amount of money on items and not overpaying for items that we can get in 2024 and have a pool ready rather than paying 25% more in 2023.
How soon can you start and meet the deadline? 15 points.
Okay, well, I apologize.
The highest number was 25. The rest of them were all valued at 15. I just want to say, I want to move on from this.
Okay.
All I was saying was that I'm not going to let you say we picked Omni because they were the only one that said that we could get this done by May.
I'm not saying that.
That's not the truth.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that 15 points of the matrix was on the timeline.
Sure, it was,
So
along
it
with
was-
other questions that were on there.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's a valid question when we are looking for somebody to try to get a pool built for next year, right? That's a valid question. We need to know, can you do it?
So we understand.
Yes, okay. All right, pool liner. That is one of those things that they said that could have an accelerated cost. Chester Pools, who we typically use for our pool liner, cannot get us on the schedule for 2023. They're booked. The other company, Renaissance, I believe, I don't have the spelling for it, is the other option. Most other companies don't do liners if they haven't also installed the gutters. So this is the other company that could do it. They might be able to get us on the schedule by July, but we do need to get on their schedule. Now here's the, for me, the good news of it all is our liner right now, although not perfect, it is not terrible. You know, if we didn't replace it this year, it would be okay. And so my suggestion was, although it is ideal to have a new liner when we open, because you want a new liner in your new pool, it is not necessary. If we are not able to get on the schedule until 2024, it will probably cost less because it won't be on an accelerated schedule. The overall agreement by council on all other aspects of the pool will determine when the liner is put in, along with the new swim lines also. So I don't think we need to be concerned about the cost for the pool liner because it may not be able to happen until 2024 anyway, and that is okay. It would still be in the design. We would be on the schedule. It would be in the works. You know, we would make that. We'd be on the schedule for that company and probably be able to do Chester Pools again, which would be fantastic because they're familiar with us. So more than likely, we will not have to pay anything accelerated on the pool liner. Just as a reminder, we are still technically on the current slide option. What do you call it? Punch list, yes. So that is where we are on that in particular. Anything else on the slide options before we move on to the next one?
Just for the next slide, keep it here, so I have an idea what we do.
Can't hear you, Russ.
Just so I know what we're going to do at the end of this, that punch list, or that slide. So it's adopt the current design for the 20-foot slide.
Yes.
Okay.
Or whatever, I think 21 or whatever it is, whatever the current one is, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to the next one. The next one is to add or remove.
Wait.
Sorry.
What?
So was everything that I said just ignored there then? So we're not going to consider doing another option? Or?
What I'm doing is I'm keeping track of this, of the things that we've discussed.
Time out. The way the process works, Chris, is when we get to vote on the resolution, if you want to amend it, to ask to have two prices, two drawings, whatever you want,
Okay.
that is your opportunity to amend that. When the resolution is presented, it will be presented as it is written here. And we know we have to make changes already. So at that point, that's when you will move to amend that part of it. Okay? So
Okay.
you weren't ignored. It's just, it all has to flow together.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to keep the notes of the things.
Yeah.
of-
Okay.
of basically
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't.
Yeah,
missing
you get your
something.
chance.
So I
Okay?
don't get
Just,
confused.
all right. So,
All right, so we'll move on to the splash pad element options. I will read from my notes of what my conversation with them was. From their experience, a basic splash pad will cost around $250,000. Since the design team did not choose a splash pad for the design, there would be additional cost to put together basic, intermediate, and best designs since they are outside of the original scope. They want to know if the splash pad is replacing something in the current scope, like the baby pool or the slide. They noted that most splash pads are not associated with a pool, or they are installed as a zone for a water park. I asked about jets, dump buckets, and foggers or misters. All of those options are considered pass-through systems, meaning they are not a closed system with filtration. It is potable water that essentially goes down the drain. The jets and bucket would have output that would exceed conservation limitations, so they are not recommended outside of a splash pad design. The fogger or mister is a good option since the output is so little. The estimated cost for a fogger is $75,000 to $100,000. So my suggestion to lead this off is that I feel strongly that we need to keep the baby pool and the slide. I think the fogger is an excellent alternative to splashing in the context of a swimming pool. I would like to see a very nice splash pad with integrated water features that can light up at night installed at Spencer's Landing. The season and hours of use would be longer and it would be free. I think putting a splash pad at Jackson Pool is not necessary due to other splash pad options in the area. We would also have features that other pools don't. I would like to take the splash pad options off the table and add the fogger. And if anybody's not familiar with the fogger, I know I've seen them at like baseball games or football games where it's like so hot and you just need to go walk through the mist, a little bit. And it's just this, I bought one that attaches to my water hose at home. It mists me if I need to sit down after mowing the grass or something. But it would be, a large thing that you can walk underneath or kind of stand in. But it's not a splash and a heavy stream of anything. So I will, again, open the floor for comments, suggestions, opinions otherwise.
Well, I'll go back to what I mentioned earlier. So we're creating that real estate. We're at $4.2 million. We've created this spot now that we can have a water slide or we can have a splash pad. I'm not for removing the baby pool either. I think there could be a good argument for it because if you did a splash pad, a lot of times there's not a need for a baby pool because of the way you develop that splash pad, okay? But I'm not suggesting that. I think what's for the baby pool, top pool, whatever you want to call it, I think it's a great plan. Love it. Splash pad to me is like saying car, okay? Do you want a Ford Ranger? Do you want a SUV? Do you want an economy car? What kind of car do you want? So, you can create a lot in a splash pad. I think when you start talking about misters or foggers, no, that's not computing. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Yeah.
That's not even in the ballpark. But, once again, I think a splash pad, number one, is more inclusive. It's going to be, it's more interactive. There's a lot of pluses to a splash pad versus a water slide that is, I'm not going to be for a $2 million water slide. And so, I would like to get some prices on different things that you can do with a splash pad, different types of splash pads. And I'm not sure that a pass-through system would necessarily be the way to go. That would need to be a recirculating system. Okay, for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, splash pads would. They would be, that's the difference because they're going to have their own filtration and pump system and all that stuff. So that is a regenerative type system. That's the difference.
And it had to be treated separately, et cetera, But it seems to be that's not the way that you are leaning, or maybe some of the people on this council are leaning. But I have to go back to the public again, that was a big request from the public. You're gonna serve more people in that splash pad than you're trying to hit an age group. And I guess this was a big question before about what the age group that you're trying to hit. And it just seemed to really narrow into those teenagers. And I think that you're gonna get more bang for your buck on a splash pad than on a water slide because you're gonna have to make a decision about that area. Now, it is possible, this is why, back to me thinking earlier, that maybe a slide that dumped into the pool would be great because you could still have a slide and then some splash pad feature. So, we're meeting, checking more boxes. No, it's not 22 feet tall and going to give you the big thrill factor, but yet that thing that's 22 feet tall is also not very inclusive to enough people, because you have to be a certain height. You have people that are not going to want to go up there. You're just going to meet a very narrow group of people. And maybe that, if that's what your target is, that's fine. But I think that we're ignoring what the public has said. And I did talk to the parks director. And I mean, 3 years ago, we talked about a splash pad here, and he's talked about it again. I mean,
He was also on the design team and decided that it was okay to not have the splash pad. He and I had that conversation, and he was really excited about this design when the rendering came out. So, yes, when he originally had those renderings done by Pickering years ago, that was his idea of what he wanted to have done, and that's why it was included in that. I'll agree to disagree again on who it's serving. In a way, I think that that 4 to 12-year-old group probably has the most options of anybody. Your younger ones are going to need that baby pool area. They're going to still be dependent on an adult to hold them in the main big pool. The older kids have been in the past very limited to what is available to them, and now they are going to have decent options. But that younger group, the only people that slide is not going to serve is kids probably at 4 or younger, and they have other good options. So, and again, I'll go back to, Marietta has a very nice splash pad area and the pirate ship and all that. Parkersburg's got a very nice splash pad. So when we're looking at our area as a whole, I believe our area is served well by splash pads. And I don't like having that splash pad limited to just our pool. I would much rather have it open, as soon as the last freeze is over, turn it on, in a public area. And before the first freeze happens, leave it on. Let it be a water feature. Let it be enjoyed by people, at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night. It would be free if it was in one of our parks. But by putting it in our pool, we are limiting it to pool hours, pool season, pool cost.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Number one, you could have, everybody knows a community somewhere and visited something where there's been, little jets that come out of the concrete and while you could probably do that at Spencer's Landing, I know it's in a flood zone and all the challenges of that property. Yeah, you could probably do that, and that's fine. That's a very low cost. It's not very expensive to do that because you wouldn't have to have a recirculating system. It's, a pass through. It's not that big of a deal. That's not what I'm really talking about. But I spoke to the parks director today, and yeah, I know when you presented that thing with the slides, okay, yeah, that looked great. Had time to think about it. And it's like, if you want to serve ages 5 to 12, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck on that splash pad than you are for a slide. But I'll say this, you can do a splash pad a heck of a lot cheaper than you can do the water slide.
I was looking back, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jim.
So I was looking back at the survey in the park plan. They asked what amenities in the survey should receive the most attention. Pool, 42%, what should be the top 5 goals. Pool, 36%. And then there's a sub-question, pool upgrades, splash pad, kiddie pool is 12%. And so, I just, from the standpoint of land use, I can't agree that there would be the same appeal in a splash pad than there would be in pool 22-foot slides. That just do not agree. The appeal, I think that Melissa's point's well made, that splash pad is available. I think foggers, maybe option to consider, not just with respect to this appeal to kids, splash pad versus kiddie pool, whatever. Kiddie pool, but you can't teach a kid to swim on splash pad, right? But with respect to the flogger, there are, we want to appeal to the broadest demographic we can, from the little kids to the adults. Bring your kids to the pool. If you're sitting there, a mom, a dad, and you're banking, you don't necessarily get the pool, being able to walk through one of those misters or foggers, anybody that's been to an event where those are available, they're really refreshing and nice, and they don't require you to get in them. And so I think that's going to have a broad appeal. I don't necessarily think it would even be so much for the little kids as it would be for maybe some adults and people who aren't necessarily ready to get in the pool. That's up their hand. So I think splash pad, especially because of the design process, I don't think it's a top priority. It's not a top priority, as I've seen in the survey that was done for citizens, whereas the focus on the pool is. I'll come back to it. And Chris, I have no idea if it's going to be right, but I'm just doing the math. And on the, I guess going back to the slides a little bit, I looked at that. To me, this timeline, and I guess I'll throw this in your head, just we've got a 20% contingency on everything. All right, and so the timeline of when it opens, and versus we go back to Omni and we say, what is the best pace in order to maximize the securing of materials? Because, like you said, it's the law of the harvest. We've got to do the infrastructure work first, the site prep first, the pump house first. Those things, as the mayor said, can be going on throughout the winter. And then say to Omni, how do we keep this 20% out of the mix? Because if you look at the slides, before contingencies are applied and the overruns or whatever it's 1.5. All right, and that's at the slide. So those are the points I make. I think that the slides are much more attractive. The splash pads, other splash pads available in the area, something like that develops in Spencer Landing, great. I don't think the design is going to be someone happens there. And so, as far as, I think foggers a good option. I think our focus needs to be on, with all due speed, how we maximize our, I think, mostly source materials timely without paying a premium, get the infrastructure done, and get it done in 2023, great, but if maximizing our return and all that's how it works, it ends up in 2024.
So, back to that master plan. You keep talking about it, but I didn't see where a giant slide tower came into that master plan at all, as far as how anybody responded. But regardless, I spent the last, 3 weeks or so talking to people, and I can't get anybody who would agree that a $2 million water slide is where we need to be, and these are parents.
Jessica, 8-year-olds.
Pardon me?
And the 2 million that you're talking about, I get that we're talking about all the stuff underground also. But that's also including, hold on, let me flip to it here. That's with all this, design contingency, cost escalation, bid market contingency. It's 1.5 without that. We're going to take, hopefully, let me see, where's it at? Is the heat feature on that one? No, sorry. Oh yeah, so we would take the heat feature off of that one, and we've got. It's not going to be 2 million, and at least say 1.9, but you keep saying 2. Just say 1.9 at least. But I'm saying,
Okay.
How about this on the bright side of things? It's 1.5. Let's say this thing rolls through and we spend 1.5.
Yeah, that's still scary. I'm not for a $1.5 million slide. You put me on the record on
all right.
that. That is an insane amount of money to me. I'm sorry. It just is.
And I'm sorry that's the world we're in right now.
Well, no, it is. I mean, yes, there's
It is.
inflation, there's all kinds of things happening, but we're making a choice to go beyond $4.2 million with anything that we pick, whether it's a splash pad or a water slide or whatever. So I know when we first started talking about this, when the Pickering plan came out in April of 21, and that price tag was about $3.5 million, and people were having shock then, and the process got delayed and delayed and delayed. And I wish we would have taken action on it then. I wish we would have actually done that plan, which was a pretty darn good plan. But we're here where we are now. So anything beyond the 4.2, that's like, it's an extra.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that one? I'm going to move on to item number 5. It was heaters for the main pool, baby pool, and slides. That is not something that we've had in our pools at all. So they had it included in the cost for each of those. We can take those out. I don't think we need to have the heaters in that. So
It's something we've never done.
Yeah.
What was that cost? You said that was in the.
Yeah, they're in each of them. Let's see, heaters, natural gas heater with vent kit. On the slides, it was like $5,625. For the wading pool, it was $5,000. For the main pool, $35,000. So you're taking off $45,000 in some.
Is that total cost?
No, that's the equipment.
That's for the equipment,
You don't
yeah.
Factor in the natural gas.
Yeah, the natural gas and,
Got to get done.
yeah, heating it up.
But so I've heard comments that, and with caveats, we would like to extend our season. And if that's the case, I don't see me to run a heater in July, okay? And if we're talking about whatever, 50 grand, and I'm not treating that as a fault yourself, I'm saying relative to the other numbers we're talking about, just like Chris said on the basketball, relative, if because we all know, the pool, for everyone, why, and Henry will tell you about how all this works, is we're often just a losing proposition. But if we have the opportunity to put in a contingency to where we can heat the pool and get additional season, and of course, if that's going to be defeated by no lifeguards and staff to do it, I understand that too, but do we have, who's the pool management company?
Mike Fishman, pool management.
But does their responsibility include, that doesn't include providing lifeguards, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It doesn't? So,
Yes.
I mean, that's the job. Anyway, so I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss the heater option if in fact it could be kind of an on-demand feature and it could possibly extend our season and at times make the pool comfortable. Like Kim said, you dump however many gallons of water in there and you gotta wait 2 weeks for it to get a temperature that's comfortable. But we can hit the burners, for 2 weeks. So anyway, I wouldn't be as quick to dismiss the heater.
Anybody else have a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think maybe we can look at just doing it for the main pool because obviously the water slide's probably, that water's probably going to be pretty cool anyway, given the time that it's used in the recirculation and stuff, and same with the baby pool. But even if we just looked at it for the main pool, like you said, to extend that season, even if it's 3-4 weeks.
What was the baby pool $5,000?
5,000.
Well,
yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of a wash.
Or we just rely on it's Vienna.
Just to give you an idea, the country club keeps their pool open every day through Labor Day. It's September 4th, and then they keep it open every weekend, weather permitting, for the rest of September. To give you an idea of using it for your pool season. Somebody over here does. So.
Huh?
The country, we were talking earlier.
What are you saying sorry for?
Well, I just don't like to interject. I'm not part of the discussion. All your questions were asked. I just want to give council a frame of reference for a pool that's right over here is open in September without And I don't believe it's heated either.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So for that then, as far as as I'm making my notes on how to propose this along the way, and you're making your notes, we can either do all out, all in, or partial. You're kind of right. I mean, I like that. Maybe do kick the burners on and turn it on, and if we are able to. Baby pool in the pool. The slides have it also, so we could have it. Just
You gotta have the grass for the slide. Whatever. How much is it for the slide?
$5,625.
And especially turn on the gas. Heating expense, use it.
Okay. Okay. Those are the items that I had on there, unless there is anything else that needs to be considered and taken to the vote. And if there isn't anything else, then I will explain what we've covered, and Russ, you double check me. Is that good?
Yeah.
So let me say this about the heaters. If we want to leave those on, they are currently in here, and we wouldn't need to take a vote on that because my suggestion was taking them off, but they are currently on here, and so if we are okay with leaving them on there, then we don't have to vote them off. So I'm going to, just for the sake of, how about if I go through and say what these are?
You need to look at me.
Oh, sorry, I was.
Ignore him.
Yeah,
We will get to him if we need him.
Just furniture.
Okay?
All right,
Here's the way this is going to work.
okay,
I'm going to read the resolution as it was presented.
okay,
All right? Once it's voted and seconded, then we will say we're open for discussion. At that point, if you will summarize what you have in your notes, at that point, then we will go through these 6 items and amend them as necessary.
okay,
All right?
good.
Here we go. This is a resolution finalizing the scope and revisions to the Jackson Pool design in order to obtain revised costs and renderings. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby approves and adopts certain proposed revisions to the Jackson Pool design. The purpose of these revisions is to authorize Omni Martin Aquatic to prepare a revised cost estimate and renderings. These revisions were previously discussed by council, offered in the form of an amendment to a previous pool design proposal in a prior meeting, and include, but are not limited to, add or remove play structure, the lily walk, the agility course, basketball hoops, climbing wall, and a rope swing. 2, add or remove a platform diving board. 3, add or remove water slide options. 4, add or remove splash pad element options. 5, add or remove heaters for main pool, baby pool, and slides. 6, add or remove other elements to be considered by council. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. I would like to summarize by saying, for item 1, we would be removing the lily walk, agility course, climbing wall, and rope swing. That would be the change from what they have presented. They currently have 2 basketball hoops in there, so we would leave them and take out, again, lily walk, agility course, climbing wall, and rope swing. On the next one, there is no platform diving board in their opinion of probable cost. They currently have 1 springboard included in there for $18,000. Recommendation to have 2 springboards, total of $36,000. Next, keep the current slide option that was presented and not ask for other options, a small or medium option. Next would be not asking for splash pad options and adding a fogger. Next is leaving the heaters in the cost. Okay. So that is my summary of what we've discussed.
I do not know of any other items that were discussed that need to be added to this discussion. Did I miss anything? I know there's some amendments, but there's nothing else that was brought up that is an add. All right. Russell, would you please give us your summary of those?
Keep current slide design option.
Use your microphone.
To it. Keep the current slide design option, not adding the other two options, and then it was leave the heaters in the cost. What was between those two?
The splash pad, not asking for splash pad options,
Okay.
but adding a fogger.
Okay. So the motion, I think, as presented is to amend the current resolution to take out the agility course, lily walk, climbing wall, and rope swing, add 2 springboard diving boards, keep the current slide design option, and not add the additional other 2 options, remove the splash pad option, add the fogger, and leave the heaters in at their present cost.
And just to clarify, we're adding 1 springboard. There's already 1 springboard in
So
the cost.
add 1 springboard.
Add an additional string.
Yeah, add an additional
additional-
springboard because there's already 1 in there.
Okay,
All right. Are you good?
I'm good. Does council understand that, the amendment?
So we can amend from here.
Yeah, you can
We
continue.
Now you can
we will
amend
start
this.
right now.
Yeah.
As soon as Russell's done.
Yeah, so
Right.
amending the resolution to take out the agility course, lily walk, climbing wall, and rope swing, add an additional springboard diving board, keep the current slide design option, and not to add 2 additional slide design options, remove the splash pad option, add the fogger, and leave the heaters in to the current design.
All right. So just to make sure that everybody's clear on this, we are going to open it up for amendments per item. Yep, we're going to do it by item. And so if you have something that you want to change, this is your opportunity to do that. All right. So on item 1, are there any amendments to item 1? All right. Hearing none, then I'll move on.
I'm going to ask you to pause the items just so
Yeah.
I'm not missing something. In other words, item 1, just pull it in.
Item 1
I
is,
think I know where we are.
item 1
We are at
is,
the very beginning, Jim, but I will do that. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're going to item 2 now. All right. Item 2 is to add an additional springboard and remove the platform diving board.
Well, it wasn't in there to begin with, but that was something that we were asking for a cost on.
What?
The platform. The platform diving board is not included in this,
Right.
but we were asking for a cost
Okay.
and we're just,
So we're
Gonna-
going to amend this to add an additional springboard. All right. All right. Got it? Okay. And I guess this thing's going to be confusing as I'll get out.
it's okay.
Let's back up to let's go back to item 1. All right. Well, there were no amendments to item 1.
Right, there were no
So
amendments to item 1.
1. So now we're to item 2. All right. Is there an amendment to add the additional diving board?
I guess that's my question. So we're amending this initial resolution. So does someone need to make a motion to change item 1 that currently says add or remove play structures to only include 2 basketball hoops and play structures? And then we need
If
to
you
vote on
want
that?
2 basketball hoops in it, you need to amend it.
That's 2.
There's two
two in it.
there's two
There's two
in
in
it
it now.
currently.
All right.
And so we're only removing 4 other apparatuses from their estimate.
Then we will need an amendment to remove the play structures, the lily walk, the agility course, the climbing wall, and the rope swing.
Okay, yeah, I guess that was my question. So I guess I will make a motion for item 1 to remove the Lily Walk agility course, climbing wall, and rope swing.
All right.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend item number 1. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the First Amendment, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, Jim? Okay, passes unanimously. So we move on to item 2. All right. Is there an amendment to add a second springboard?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we add an additional springboard. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the amendment to add an additional springboard, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right. Item number 3 is
Keeping the current slide option and not requesting 2 other smaller options.
all right. Is there an amendment to the water slide options?
I'd like to
Yes.
move to keep the current slide.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
But was that already the amendment?
It says this says add or remove water slide options. So we would be,
Right now, it appears that we're going down his punch list. She's made 6 proposals.
Right.
And so we're going through each of the proposals and we're approving or disapproving the proposal. I know that previously at a meeting, there was an amendment to ask those folks to do that. This motion will supersede that previous action of council, asking for those designs to be done. And and the reason for that is she has contacted the Aquatic, whoever it is that's doing it, and they have said to do that, there's going to be an additional cost. So right now that she's asking, there's been a motion and a second to keep the current slide design option and not add the other 2 smaller slide design options. Again, that will change what you guys have previously made amendments to do in the prior council. Now, if you want to change that, again, you can make a motion to amend, to add, or to request those costs. But right now, the motion on the floor is to keep the current slide design option and not add the other 2 smaller slide design.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we keep the water slide options as presented.
I didn't hear who seconded it. Who?
Roger did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to approve the water slide options as presented. Is there any further discussion? All right, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the water slide options as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All right, all those opposed? It passes 5-2. All right, so we go to item number 4.
Can I make another motion to make an amendment then?
No,
Why not?
well, simply because it was passed as presented.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you can't do it both ways. It has to be one way or the other. Melissa made a motion to approve it as presented. It was voted on and it was done that way.
Well, I understand that, but he started to make that motion right when she overrode him. So I think he has an opportunity. You should have an opportunity to make it
Well,
to
thank you.
amend his motion.
Thank you. We'll move on. The next item that's there would be item number 4, which is to add or remove the splash pad element options.
I make a motion to add the splash pad element options.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we add the splash pad element option. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of adding the splash pad element, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2. All right. So based on the fact that it was voted down, then the splash pad element has been removed. Add the heaters for the main pool, baby pool, and slides.
I'd like to make a motion to add the fogger to the design.
Under what item?
the splash pad.
The six things that she enumerated
Gotcha.
at the beginning, that was the fifth.
Okay,
It's
gotcha. All right. So
already been voted down.
not the splash pad element.
understand.
has
The
been-
splash pad was
fogger.
voted down.
I
Yes,
understand. This is-
okay. So the motion on the floor is to add the fogger option. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we add the fogger option to the design. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of adding the fogger option, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? 6-1 in favor. So now we move to item number 5, and thank you for correcting me. I did not remember the fogger. Add the heaters for the main pool, baby pool, and slides. And I don't believe we have to vote on that because it's in the original design as presented.
But if you want to amend it to
If-
remove,
Then you have to do it. But
Yes.
if, because they're in there, then we don't have to do anything unless someone makes a motion to remove the heaters. All right, then we'll move on. Item number 6, there were no additional elements to be considered by council. So Russell, if you would please give us the items that were amended, and then we will vote on the resolution.
the resolution was amended to take out the agility course, lily walk, climbing wall, and rope swing, to add an additional springboard diving board, to keep the current slide design option and not add the other 2 smaller slide design options, to add the fogger, and that's it, because the heaters were left as part.
All right.
Okay. All those in favor of the resolution finalizing the scope and revisions to the Jackson Pool design in its amended form in order to obtain the revised cost and renderings, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? The resolution passes 5-2. All right.
The cost of the heater, about $50,000.
About 6.
35 and 10, so it's about 45, Tom.
45.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments?
Yeah, I guess I would just like to make a comment that I think the way that this has been approached has been kind of forced upon us. You know, I voted down the resolution as a whole because I didn't feel comfortable with what we're doing on the water slides. I support some of the other items that we've talked about, and I voted for those things as part of the resolution, but I guess it's just kind of disheartening to me to see how we're kind of just plowing ahead with this design that was given to us from the very beginning, really without any kind of thoughtful consideration for costs or anything. So I guess we'll see what they come back with in a few weeks. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that opinion of probable cost is going to be, because I think we're going to have to look at, as a city, how much we're really willing to spend on this whole pool project. But
All right, are there any other council comments?
I kind of want to echo what Chris just said. I've been pro pool all along. I think it's a very important thing that we have it in our community, and I know there are a lot of other people who don't necessarily agree with that. But cost is a big thing, and you know, there are a lot of needs of this city, and I'm sorry, but $4.2 million, I was comfortable with that, but this has ballooned into something I can't. Obviously, I didn't vote for it. I'm befuddled. I don't know what to say about it, but I'm just very disappointed. So, thank you.
Any other comments for council?
Yeah, I thank Melissa for all of her work she's done.
Yeah,
absolutely. She gets paid by the hour. And,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
and I think
exciting.
that the due diligence is credible, whether people have the right to disagree. And to me, you know, I hope that our best effort is in the time frame of this, in order to maximize our return, material costs and so on, and avoid those contingencies. And so, you know, really pay close attention to what Omni's doing to bring this project home, and also to do it in a way that we're not gonna see all these contingencies manifest. And I think that's the focus from this point forward, is to keep an eye on what's going on and make sure it is justified. We got a lot of, you know, Kim's talking 4.2 and above and beyond. If we go down, and that's not those numbers. And I think now management of this project, balancing the timeline versus the cost, is the best thing that whoever's tasked with overseeing this thing can do to really to keep, you know, this expensive project to live. I think the slides are the centerpiece, so expensive. Those things are going to be popular forever. So,
I just want to clear something up, Chris, that you brought up at the last meeting about an aquatic center or a swimming pool. I have spoken to every person in the state of West Virginia multiple times, and the code that you quote, Section 4 and Section 6, there is no distinction. It's based on how big the square footage is of your pool itself, and what it does is it regulates how much recirculation time is involved, how many safety factors are involved with the restroom facilities and all that. You know, obviously, the bigger the pool you get, the more amenities you have to have safety-wise. And so, I mean, I spoke to everyone. The gentleman from the health department in Charleston that's in charge of issuing the permit when we start to build this, to the state chairman of the Parks and Recreation. And there is no distinction between an aquatic center or a swimming pool. It's just wording. And I mean, it all has to do with how big you are and how fast you can turn that water over.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a pump big enough to make sure that it recycles fast enough in order to maintain the water quality. So I made a lot of friends because I talked to a lot of people about that, and it's just one of those things where there is not a distinction between an aquatic center and a swimming pool. The gentleman that issues the permit defined it as a recreational water facility. That's the only guideline that they use when they issue that pool. So, okay.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I would like to bring to your attention is this Saturday at 11 o'clock is the Vienna Christmas Parade. It's the largest parade that we've ever had for people to sign up. And so if you're in town, please go down to Grand Central and watch the parade. It should be great. No rain, Henry. Do not get us any rain, okay? Good deal. All right. With that, yes, sir,
I
Tom.
appreciate all the work people did. I did all my stuff. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right. All right. With that,